Welcome to the Morning Brief. We're live in the nation's commercial capital, Lagos. I'm Kayode Okikilu.
Good morning and welcome. How are you today? How really are you? Even if you're down, don't stay down. Remember, setbacks are opportunities to come back up. So turn your wounds into wisdom. Get up and go chase your dreams one more time. Good morning again and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
Well, it's time check for the federal government. In case you've forgotten, which I know you haven't, I'm sure you're doing something behind the scene besides the statements we've heard. It's exactly about 1 week since those innocent little children were kidnapped from Kuriga community in Kaduna State. So we're waiting to hear that very, important news that they be released. So 1 week, over 200 children, 287 we understand, of course. We're waiting for the news. That's what everybody's desperately looking out for. Let's not forget the people in Borno. Well, that's what's on my mind this morning. Good morning. Welcome to the show. I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
It's quite a lot, really, to just wrap your heads around. And you just wonder, having to go through all of these stories time and again, you can almost predict. There's the mental health angle. You just wonder how a lot of people are coping with it, particularly those affected right now, because you have hundreds of parents who need some sort of support psychologically, daily. They don't know the fate of their children. I think a few of them escaped. And, the tales they had were not palatable at all. So imagine for the ones that don't know the fate of their children, they don't know if they've been sold, if they have been radicalized, because 1 week is a long time. So it's a lot really to wrap your heads around, but it's important to get the right information, stay focused, and ask the right questions. And that's what we're about today on the show.
Speaking of which, federal government said yesterday that no ransom will be paid and that security agents have been giving express instructions to ensure the release. While that is heartwarming, it's reminiscent of that catch-22 situation where parents always find themselves in. No parent really wants to hear that ransom would not be paid. But then again, the propriety of it all, paying ransom will mean emboldening, those insurgents, those kidnappers, to do more damage to the system. So really, if government says no ransom will be paid, it should be backed up by a resolve to do the right things, put more boots on the ground, ensure the welfare of security agents, ensure that technology is also put in place to ensure that there is a strategy deployed to rescue those children and women, and of course, rein in on the insurgents. Yeah.
Absolutely. So simple things for me. Nobody's going to award you or reward you for efforts. You'll be rewarded for results. So nobody's going to give kudos to anyone. We thank the servicemen for their services. They've been doing their bit despite the stretches they had in terms of welfare, in terms of ammunition and all of that. But right now, when it comes to issues like this, results is what will decide how you'll be applauded, not effort. So let's support them, let's support everyone to make sure that these kids are released. Hey, that's all we have for you today on the program.
Absolutely. So let's give you a sneak peek into the package. It's a 2-hour package today, as always. And first off, it's a race against time, really, for Nigeria's Northwest. Hundreds, yes, as we've said, hundreds of children remain in bandit captivity. But the ones not abducted are at the risk of life-threatening, severe, acute malnutrition. Medical charity Doctors Without Borders says 854 children have died in its facilities in 3 states as it warns of catastrophic levels of malnutrition and an escalating humanitarian crisis.
Well, it's really a sad one. But today would have been the day for the launch of the much talked about and anticipated student loan takeoff. But sadly, the federal government has announced a suspension. That it would announce a date for the launch of that scheme soon. So what's happening with that? We'll do a check on that one. So stay with us. Those of you interested in pursuing your university education would need this update that we'll be providing.
This next one, you may need to pay very close attention, especially if you're a corporate. You may have heard of one company that lost millions of dollars to scammers who used AI-generated deepfakes to trick its finance staff into moving a huge amount of money. Authorities across the world are getting concerned by the sophistication of deepfake technology and its use for nefarious purposes. How can you stay on guard? You have to find out before that money moves out of your account. It's important.
Particularly now that, you have to do some extra to get that cash. It's very important for individuals, companies, and government. But that's not all. We also bring you the heartwarming story of a woman who is giving hope to orphaned and indigent girls from slums and marginalized communities through education. They see dance, arts, and life skills. Now, their dance videos have gone viral and attracted attention globally, and they're literally catching their dreams.
Always so exciting. Children, that lady's going to be here to make sure she tells us that. I can't wait for that segment. Like, how do you put it together?
I'm looking forward to meeting those children as well.
Yes, I wish you would bring those children, because it literally feels like everyone in that place can dance. No, I can't dance like that, but it's okay.
It looks like you're going to be doing some dancing very soon, Jeffrey.
We'll try that.
I'll try.
Of course, we don't want to take them out of school, but it's important because that conversation should hopefully trigger the authorities to pay attention to other children, particularly in the northern region, some of them in captivity, some of them out of school, because with children we have so much potential. Don't forget, you can also reach out to us on the show. I mean, what's the show without you, right? So you can do that on X, on Facebook, Instagram, at CTV Morning Brief. That's our brand new handle, which we have for you to engage. And of course on WhatsApp as well, so you can send in your messages, videos, or what have you. Right there, that's the number on the screen. So what a package we have for you. Let's get started with the top stories. These are the stories that will shape the conversation today and in the coming days. That's just in about a few seconds. Stay with us. It's the Morning Brief. Top stories on the hour. For the bandits demanding tens of millions of naira as ransom for kidnapped victims in Kaduna, Sokoto, Borno, and other states, well, they're not getting it from the federal government. And that's according to the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Muhammad Idris, who restated the government's stance that it will not pay a dime for the rescue of the victims. Speaking after the Federal Executive Council meeting at the Presidential Villa Abuja, he maintained that President Bola Tinubu has a side saying there will be ransom paid from the federal government. He's also reiterated his directive to the military to ensure that the victims are rescued and brought back safely to their homes.
We are seeing some kind of movement by the more the security agencies are also hitting these targets, the targets of criminals, the more they are pushed to also getting some soft targets. But government is not taking any excuses. The president has directed that security agencies must, as a matter of urgency, ensure that these children and all those who have been kidnapped are brought back in safety, and government is not paying anybody any dime, and the government is optimistic that these children and other people that are abducted will be brought back to their families in safety.
And on the distribution of grains across the country by the federal government, the Minister of Agriculture, who was also at the FEC briefing, gives this update. We'll take a listen.
We're distributing to state capitals in the first instance now. As you all are aware, the risks involved in vandalization of foodstuff in transit. So we're working assiduously with the Office of the National Security Advisor and the DSS and the police. And as I can assure you, we have started distributing, especially in the Northwest, with Northwestern states. We're distributing out of 7 points.
Now back to security. The Sokoto State Police Command says that the terrorists who abducted 15 Amajiri children and a woman at Gidembakuso village have contacted the teacher of a Sangaya school where the children were abducted. Although the police confirmed that ransom was demanded, no specific amount was mentioned. However, a source in the community informed our correspondents that the terrorists demanded 20 million naira as ransom for the release of the victims. They were kidnapped in the early hours of Saturday when terrorists raided Gidembakuso village in Gada local government area. Staying in the region, medical charity Médecins Sans Frontières, that's MSF, also known as Doctors Without Borders, has raised the alarm over what it describes as the dire humanitarian situation unfolding in Nigeria's northwest geopolitical zone. The organization in a statement highlights the devastating impact of armed conflict on communities, resulting in catastrophic levels of malnutrition and escalating crises. According to MSF's head of mission, Ahmed Bilal, over 854 children lost their lives in its facilities across Zamfara, Sokoto and Katsina last year. That's due to malnutrition exacerbated by armed conflict, which also severely limits access to healthcare services, as it stresses the urgent need for a coordinated response. In his words, the lack of recognition of the crisis is having a severe impact on the health and humanitarian needs of the population and delaying the response, which is desperately needed. The MSF's report underscores the urgent need for international attention and support to address the worsening humanitarian crisis in Nigeria's northwest, where countless lives hang in the balance amid escalating violence and widespread suffering. Well, to some sharing news, no fewer than 40 kidnapped victims have been rescued from kidnappers in Gundum Maliki Mountain, which is located in your local government area of Taraba State. Well, their rescue is sequel to a joint effort between the police, professional hunters, and vigilante groups.
It is the result of this that has led to the rescue of victims that you are seeing up there. Kidnapped victims that have spent various times or weeks in captivity.
Meanwhile, the army says troops of Operation Hadarindaji have neutralized bandits and rescued 10 kidnapped victims around Safi town, that's in Safi local government area of Zamfara State. A statement released by Information Officer of Operation Hadarindaji, Lieutenant Suleiman Omali, explains that the troops were responding to a distress call yesterday night and engaged the bandits in a fierce gun battle, ultimately forcing them to flee with gunshot wounds. Yesterday, meaning that was on Tuesday. According to the statement, the troops' action led to the successful rescue of 10 kidnapped individuals who have been safely reunited with their families. Well, the challenges, security, economy, and the rest notwithstanding, Nigeria has a huge potential to enhance the quality of its agricultural exports, particularly cowpea and sesame, which could then generate billions of dollars, significantly boosting the country's revenue. That's according to the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, in an exclusive interview with Channels Television. Same for Africa. The share of global trade has remained stagnant at approximately 3% or even less, but there are opportunities for improvement, she says.
Africa's share of world trade has stagnated at about 3% or less for many years, but there are opportunities to improve that, including in Nigeria. Let me start with Nigeria. Nigeria does have many opportunities to diversify its economy and its revenue source. And we were here from the WTO because there's an opportunity to help the country increase its exports of agricultural products. And the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment asked for help. How can we improve the quality of agricultural products like cowpeas and sesame seeds, where we stand to gain not millions but billions of dollars if we can meet the quality and certification standards being demanded by those who import from us. So the WTO has the ability with small amounts of money. We are not a financing agency, but we have small amounts, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, and they can leverage billions, because with that we build the capacity of extension workers, of farmers, of agribusiness people. What amount of pesticides do you use? How do you make sure that you meet sanitary and phytosanitary standards so that the people you're selling to, they have certain standards, you meet them? We are able to do that training, and then you see that people are able to sell more and farmers can triple their income. We worked with shea butter producers in Oyo State, and the women were so excited when I met them 2 years ago, telling me how they tripled their income from being able to sell to the EU, to South Africa, to US, N.West where they were not able to. Some of them are still struggling. We are still trying to work with them. The same now with sesame seed and cowpea. So that's one. I'm just giving you one example.
Well, that's the WTO DG, Dr. Kozil Kojawela. More business now. 10 years after his retirement as Access Bank CEO, Mr. Igboje Agimokwede makes a return to the organization, which is now a holdings company, but this time as its non-executive chairman. According to a statement signed by the company secretary, Sunday Kochi, the invitation of Mr. Agimokwede is in response to the untimely passing of the immediate past group chief executive officer, Dr. Herbert Wigwe, and it follows extensive consultations with key stakeholders. He replaces Mr. Abubakar Jimo, the erstwhile chairman of the Holdco, who remains on the board as an independent non-executive director. Commented on his appointment, Mr. Agimokwede says, "I am thrilled to be back in active service to the Access Group ecosystem. I am confident that working with our directors, our exceptional team of executives, and our best-in-class banking and finance professionals, we will deliver outstanding value to our esteemed stakeholders. I'm determined that our shared vision, which Dr. Wigwe gave everything for, will be realized." Well, he had served as a group chief executive officer between 2002 and 2013, supported by his partner and deputy, the late Dr. Wigwe, who later succeeded him. And outside the country, the U.S. House of Representatives has passed a bill that could see social media app TikTok banned in America. But the bill would require the Chinese tech giant ByteDance to sell its stake in the app within 6 months or face a ban from U.S. app stores and web hosting platforms. But it follows previous efforts by American authorities to limit access to the app, citing national security risks. Well, if the bill does manage to secure approval in the Senate, and President Joe Biden has promised to sign it as soon as it lands on his desk, which could prompt a diplomatic spat with China. Well, TikTok is owned by Chinese company ByteDance, which was founded in 2012. And our sports news, Team Nigeria have won a bronze medal in cricket as the sports made its debut at the African Games, beating Uganda by 3 wickets. The female Yellow Greens, ranked as the lowest in the tournament, opted to bowl first, restricted Victoria Pearls to a modest total of 76 runs for the loss of 8 wickets in 20 overs. Well, Nigeria required 7 runs from 6 deliveries to seal a historic win with 3 wickets to spare. But Lucky Piety dispersed the first 2 balls for back-to-back boundaries, sending the Nigeria dugout into euphoria and the Uganda bench to utter shock and disbelief. Well, better believe that Nigeria is doing great things, not just in football and the rest, but as you can see, in cricket. Well, those are the top stories for you this morning. Let's now walk through what you are saying across social media. Well, Bukola is here to join me as we walk through the trends this morning. Bukola?
Yeah. Some of the things being said on social media today, really a reflection of disappointment at what should have been, but what has been cut short. Well, we hope temporarily, and I'm talking about the student loan that has been postponed to a later date, yet to be announced by the federal government. But there are other things that Nigerians are talking about this morning, and we're starting with no ransom will be paid.
Right.
Nigerians are reacting to that naturally. And the first one is from Badmus. Badmus Uthman says, Tinubu is the type of president Nigeria needs. We won't negotiate with any terrorists. They will release those children when they feel the heat. Question is, how long?
Big question. Calvin_OJ says, no dime should be paid. Paying will make it a lucrative business. The police should up their game to modern technology of tracking criminals. Western countries are using it. Nigerian police and military should develop their technology surveillance and stop doing it the old ways.
The locus in quo says 2 things must give way: ransom or a rescue. If you can't achieve the latter, then you must give way for the former. The captives can't be there forever.
Right. And you see, Emmy himself, it's a big topic. I know it's been a major debate, but see what Emmy himself says, that paying them to release the children will only bring more harm to us. The military, police, NSCDC, and DSS should rescue them.
Go ahead, Kyle.
I think it's also been said how this course, is also a ploy, some gimmick by the terrorists, bandits, whatever you want to call them, to have the children or the captives as human cover. So essentially, it will be tough for security forces to fire at them at will and the rest. But this is government stance. Children are still in captivity. You have parents who are worried. I mean, that's a parent's worst nightmare.
Every day that the children remain with those their captors is agony for the parents. But we've been talking about this forever. For a long time during the last administration, they used them as human shields. When will our military be competent enough to be able to overcome that with strategy and rescue and arrest?
Well, it speaks to funding, it speaks to training and the rest, because you will hear that we have one of the best military in the world. But there you go.
This one is from Zubairu Copycat, and they say, while we all share the deep concern for the safety of our abducted children, it's imperative that we find solutions that do not involve funding the criminals behind these heinous acts. We must prioritize proactive measures to prevent such abductions subsequently.
Well, Mr. Underscore Francis 55 has a different opinion, and just to bring this to you, says, well, it's too early to make this comment because the life of the children are involved, even if that's the right step to take. So
Ola of Nigeria says, I agree with you on this one, while agreeing with the president, the federal government. If you have a swift rescue team, normally a serious government shouldn't negotiate with terrorists, but that's the proviso, if you have a swift rescue team.
So let us know what you think about this. Hashtag CTV Morning Brief. You can just tag us at CTV Morning Brief on social media. Let's now go to yet another major topic that has gotten you talking, and that's the students' loan. Well, today was meant to be the day for the launch, but that's not happening anymore, at least as of today. N.Fund put out a statement saying, well, they need to essentially harmonize the stakeholders, that they are ready as a Nigerian Education Loan Fund. They are ready, but they would need to harmonize stakeholders together. But a lot of people thought this is not the first time we heard a postponement, not the second, and now this time again. So you see this one from Oluwa on X as well, saying that the Nigeria I'm seeing now doesn't need student loan scheme. They need to leave education subsidized at the federal and state level. The sudden hike in tuition doesn't make sense. Not in a place like Nigeria for now.
Well, Abiz Media NG seems to agree with the federal government for whatever reason, and he says, good move by Mr. President. Nigeria can't afford to roll out the student loan right now, knowing full well that the current economic reality of our country.
I remember the president saying it must, as a matter of urgency, happen. I think it was by the beginning of this year. Finally, let's take this one from I'm Kazo, saying, by prioritizing fuel subsidy removal over addressing student loan availability, the FG risks widening the gap in access to education and hindering socio-economic development. This decision reflects a lack of foresight and neglect of the long-term benefits of investing in education, he says there. So lots of thoughts around this one, and it's important to get insights into what exactly is going on. Remember, N.Fund said that they're going to try to harmonize the stakeholders. One of the major stakeholders, naturally, the recipients or potential recipients of the loans, and those are the students. So this morning, we'll be having a conversation with, of course, the National Association of Nigerian Students, that's NANS, to get a sense of what is it they know about this, how far they've been carried along, and what is next, particularly with the school fees hike that looks like it's not coming down. As you can see, we have Lucky Monefe, who's the national president of NANS, joining us from our Abuja studio this morning. Good morning, Mr. Monefe. It's good to have you on the Morning Brief.
Mr. Monefe, good morning, and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning.
Right, so
to meet you.
I just want to get your first impression about this suspension of the student loans. I imagine you were preparing for today, perhaps to attend the event and then start encouraging students to enroll for this, particularly indigent students. But now that it has been suspended, you are a major stakeholder. So I imagine you've been carried along every step of the way. What can you tell us about this hold on the student loan scheme?
Okay, I think these
Let's go ahead, Mr. Monife.
Student loan initiative, those who initiated it and those who implemented it is a good initiative. It's highly commendable. I think the facilitator of that bill and Mr. President's commitment to ensuring that this is actually implemented, we as Nigerian students, we commend the effort. It's a good development. Talking about the postponement and the shifting of the date, I think we are okay with it too, because even during our visit to Mr. President, there are certain things that need to be put in place. And this is the reason for the postponement. And we as Nigerian students, we are in line with that, because you can remember vividly that there was an extension in the student loan, including the vocational training and having vocational skill inclusion in the student loan. And there are some certain adjustments that needed to be done towards the student loan. We don't want a situation whereby hurriedly launch it, the app is out, student can't access it, and there are some certain rigidity in the process. So even we as we want it to be properly done. It is even better it is properly done than it is hurriedly done. So I think we as student representative, we want every criteria to be put in place, every necessary step should be put in place, and it should be all encompasses. Because I could remember vividly when we visited Mr. President, we presented some challenges, some rigidity in assessing it. I think they are working on those areas.
Can you elaborate a bit more on those areas, those things that need to be put in place? And how long do you think the federal government requires to ensure that those gray areas are tidied up before the takeoff?
Okay, I think when we visited Mr. President, we talked about the criteria for assessing the loan. Because the intention of this loan is having students to assess it, those who can afford these education fees and charges during the course of the educational pursuit will have access. The children of the common people can have access to education. While doing that, these access must be open to everybody. But you look at those criteria initially put there are stringent conditions such as having level 12 civil servant, a lawyer that has served for 10 years, I think, or someone in the Ministry of Justice. There are other conditions that are there. Now you can discover that, and even your parents will earn close to about at least 500,000 per annum. And we pleaded that not all Nigerian students can be able to meet up these conditions. So we want a situation whereby it is free for genuine Nigerian students who can't afford it, not giving them strict conditions. So we pleaded. I think we visited Mr. President, our Nigerian student pleaded, of course, the conditions should come down so that students can access it, because the purpose of the loan is accessing it and having access to education. Because Mr. President told us that he wants all Nigerian students who wants to learn should have access to education. So those conditions, I think they are working on them as well. Then I think there is one silent issue about we said it's all about student loan. And you know, even the app, the conditions and the student need to give in proper orientations. And we are the one to do the proper orientation to our students who want to access this loan. This is how to go about it. This is when to do it. These conditions that are easy for, like on our part as students, we want a situation whereby if you are a Nigerian student, you have your NIN, you have your BVN, and you have your admission letter. Of course, you should have access to this loan. This is our position. So we want a situation whereby all students who are in tertiary institutions have access to it. So these things are the areas I think they are putting in place. to ensure that, yes, this is done properly. And we want to give our students proper orientation. We don't want a situation whereby in our institutions, here we have, for instance, 1,000 students, only 10 students assess it.
Right.
It is not the purpose of Mr. President.
Mr. Emonefe, let me just come in here and ask, so does that explain why it's been postponed not once? I mean, we had thought this was going to take off last year with the failures we had. The president had said, it should take off early this year. It must take off. And, he gave that directive. And so for a lot of people, they're thinking, well, this is another promise and fail. I mean, you promised us this thing, and it is not happening, and they've literally lost hope in this. So I don't know how confident you are, if you can vouch that government is really going to make this happen as soon as possible. I don't imagine that these gray areas will take a long time to resolve, really. It can take just perhaps days. So speak to us. Do you trust the government to follow through with this and institute the students' loan scheme as soon as possible?
To be honest with you, we've met with Mr. President. We made our complaint before him. We've seen his commitment as well. And he has a genuine commitment towards ensuring the implementation of the student loan. I think the only areas we want to state here is that we want our students to be properly educated. We are confident that it will work. We are very confident. After listening to Mr. President, it is even left for Mr. President. Mr. President wants it to be done today because we are all prepared for the launching of the app today. It is left for Mr. President, wants it to kiss up, but wants it to be properly, those giving the responsibility, want it to be properly done. Our students need to be oriented. We don't want a situation whereby we rush it and we couldn't achieve success towards it. So on our part, we agree with the proposal. I'm very confident that it won't take even up to 3 weeks. There are little amendments that need to be done since there is inclusion of those vocational training and the rest of you. I'm very confident that in the shortest period of time, we are going to kickstart it and things will work well for Nigerian students, and we'll do our sensitization. Even in various, during my campus tour, I'll be giving orientation, giving assurance to Nigerian students, of course, that they will assess it. Because recently, we have a situation whereby students, they have issue of increment in school fees. Some of them even want to commit suicide. We have a female student from University of Abuja who's supposed to have access, his school fees was supposed to 70-something thousand, was increased to 195,000. You get what I'm saying? So right. I think with the commencement of this student loan, we'll be able to sort out these issues. Because the concern for a lot of people is also the fact that the fees have gone up and the student loan hasn't come to cushion the effect just yet. So they are having to pay out of pocket. So those same indigent people that the president says he wants to go to school, I wonder how they're getting by now with inflation, with cost of food items and the rest. So are you also appealing to schools to bring down their fees for now, pending when the student loan comes in quickly? Okay, I think one of our requests before Mr. President is the hard conditions that Nigerian students are passing through. The cost of living, increments by management of school fees. We presented that issue, and the Minister of Education, we had a section with all Vice Chancellor, all Provost, all Rector, and I think on the issue of increment in school fees, we have placed pendiment on it because, Mr. President, we brought that issue that Mr. President said there shouldn't be further increment in school fees. So we are monitoring activities that we are getting reports that any increment in school fees or any higher institution, of course, as a representative of Nigerian students, we are going to weigh in and ensure that things are reversed immediately because it is our responsibility to speak for the interest of our students, the welfare of our students, and to ensure that, yes, our students' interest is highly protected. All right, we'd like to thank you so much. I can assure you that those era of increments in school fees will be the thing of the past because we are monitoring closely the activities of this management. Right. We'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Lucky Emonefe, who's National President of NANS. Although we've had some people asking,
Are you really a student? At what level are you? Is it undergraduate or postgraduate? I know you've heard that question a lot.
You are not a student, you cannot be a president of Nigeria student. I'm a student, of course. I'm an undergraduate student.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Lucky Monefe, National President, NANS. Thank you for your time. Wish you the very best. And of course, we'll be following up with the developments to ensure that this is followed through with.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, I wonder whether universities are complying with the directive not to increase fees until, things stabilize. But let's go to other themes this morning. And you're still talking, and this time around you're talking about the federal government's decision to open land and air borders with the Republic of Niger. Interesting one there. Maybe we'll just take two. This one is from Ayo Lastborn. This is the best decision so far now. I'm very sure price of rice is going to be reduced, I believe, fully with the help of Seme border. But not Seme border now, Niger border.
Exactly. Well, that's much we can take. There's so much more we have for you on the show. Don't forget, keep sending in those comments, questions. If you've got videos as well for us, send them in. We'll go on a quick one now. And when we return, we'll turn our attention to yet another major issue. That's in a moment. Well, stay with us.
Welcome back to the program. We now shift gears to the issue of insecurity in the north and its attendant potential crisis for the future. This is what we're going to be talking about because these children are still in captivity, women are still in captivity, others are still in captivity. What does all of this mean to the humanitarian situation in parts of the north or major parts of the north and across the country? That's why we've been joined on the program by the country representative in Nigeria of Médecins Sans Frontières, popular called Doctors Without Borders, is joins us from our Abuja studios to bring perspective to what they are dealing with as an institution, as an NGO, as far as this humanitarian issue is concerned. We've been joined now by Dr. Simba Tirima. Dr. Tirima, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
We know that we've seen some documents. We know we've been reporting these issues of insecurity across parts of the north. But you are in a better position to, maybe in just a few minutes, maybe 2 minutes, give us an overview of the kind of crisis of the now and the future the instability in the north is posing to the country and that region.
Let me start by saying that through 2023, MSF witnessed catastrophic levels of malnutrition and persistent outbreaks of preventable diseases in the Northwest. Now, this is 2023. We've been in the Northwest for a long, long time, more than a decade, so to speak, and we continue to witness these issues. But 2023 really stood out. Communities in the Northwest, including around 600,000 displaced people, are suffering due to extreme violence, deteriorating economic conditions, as everybody knows, as well as, of course, the issues of global climate change. The humanitarian crisis in the Northwest remains largely unrecognized, ignored, and forgotten. We hear harrowing stories from our caregivers who come to our facilities with very severely malnourished children after having walked for miles and hours in insecure places without access to primary healthcare facilities and money for transportation. And as you rightly mentioned, a total of 854 children died in our facilities, which was within 24 to 48 hours after admission.
Oh boy. So as it stands now, what in your view has to be done in terms of the level of urgency that is required to, because why I'm trying to pose the question in a particular way is because there are so many moving parts to make sure this is reversed. So my question primarily is, how can we begin to work, maybe by installment, to begin to reverse some of this trend? Because it's not going to be in one fell swoop. Is it about funding? Is it about trying to stem the insecurity? Does it have to do with everything to make sure that we don't have this level of casualty and humanitarian crisis on our hands?
Yeah, first of all, let me say that, humanitarian crises are really never solved through humanitarian interventions. And what do I mean by this? Humanitarian crises are often precipitated by several multifactorial issues, right? And the humanitarian sector really is not equipped to address those underlying issues. And so for us, the focus really is interventions that would save lives, interventions that would provide relief. And one of the issues, as we've mentioned over and over again, not only on this platform, but elsewhere, is that, look, we need more hands on deck, right, to provide that relief, to provide those life-saving interventions that would give a second chance to many of these kids who are dying.
Now, your statement on the humanitarian situation focuses on the Northwest. And here you say that your teams treated 171,465 malnourished children last year and admitted more than 32,000 into hospitals. Now, this number naturally causes one to ask that what's the response of government in terms of the provision of internally displaced persons camps in Nigeria's Northwest and emergency provision of medical aid and perhaps makeshift hospitals to absorb some of the challenges that your organization is dealing with. Perhaps you can speak to that.
Yeah, I cannot speak specifically to what the government can or cannot do, really, because our role here is as much as possible to provide that relief. We are guests of the government who are here to, bring humanitarian buckets of relief to douse a fire that exists. The responsibility of addressing these underlying issues, the responsibility of expanding on what we do lies in the hands of the government, which is, in my view, is very capable of addressing some of these problems. And so, yes, we will continue to be guests of this government or the Nigerian people to do what it is that we do as a humanitarian community. But again, the buck stops with the government. Yes, we would like to see more facilities absorbing some of these kids. Above all, actually, we also would like to see more humanitarian actors in this region to pick up the slack, because MSF is one organization, right, which is stretched very thin given the magnitude of the needs in these places. And so, yes, while there are some other actors, a few actors in the Northwest, we clearly would like to see more.
Let me ask that question in a different way. How many IDP camps are in the northwestern part of Nigeria that can take some of the challenges that you are helping to manage?
So my understanding of the situation is that most of the IDPs, most of the displaced people in the Northwest, and in actually many parts of this country, don't live in camps per se. They are in host communities. They are in, some of them occupy schools and places like this that offer some kind of shelter. And so I don't think there are formal camps that can address the issue probably the way we envisage it. And so I think, facilities, primary healthcare facilities, hospitals in LGAs would be useful to address some of these issues. By the way, MSF works in state facilities. Especially in the Northwest, we've not constructed our own hospitals and things like this. Occasionally we might, expand what we do by putting up a tent here and there, but we work in state facilities.
The beauty of this conversation is that we're having it because we believe that things can change, things can get better. So it's not a lost cause, as some people will think. I know that you said that last year, September, your teams in Zamfara State were forced to stop supporting inpatient malnutrition facility in Anka, and they were even temporarily evacuated from Zurmi because fighting was getting dangerously close to the hospital. It might be a bit tricky for people maybe in this part of the country to understand what the typical day is like for MSF workers or humanitarian workers in that part of the country. So maybe one more time we can try to paint that picture for people so they can understand what it is you are dealing with and the dangers ahead if we don't try to put an end to this. So walk us through what a typical day is like, the kinds of children you have to attend to, malnutrition. Some of them die, by the way. So maybe paint a picture of what a typical day is like for MSF.
Yeah, first, well, let me, and I like how you put it across. There's always hope. We cannot give up and wallow in despair. No, things can change. But yes, we have challenges, serious challenges in terms of our operations in some of these places. And as MSF, we have a duty of care to our staff. And sometimes there are concerns of their own personal safety. And as you rightly mentioned, in Zamfara, in Anka, for example, we had to pull out of that area of physical presence and adapt and have other mechanisms of reaching to people, including sort of remote management. In Zurumi, as you mentioned, yes, we face serious security problems. So access to these folks that need help is a real challenge in light of the safety and security of our staff. I can't imagine, being in a facility and you hear gunfight, just close to you. Or I can't imagine plying those roads from one area to another, and you're not very sure what will happen to you. You can be kidnapped, or you can be shot at, or whatever the case might be. And humanitarianism really does not consist of sacrificing one life to save another. We take risks. We have appetite for risks because we really want to reach out to these very vulnerable people. But we have limits as well, and I cannot imagine what those people in need have to go through, walking through, insecure areas, not knowing if they'll be kidnapped, not knowing if they will be assaulted. SGBV is a reality in these places. And so, yes, what we really hope for going forward is a change that allows for, yes, humanitarian relief to continue to be provided, but eventually to resolve these problems where we don't have to be dealing with these crises and emergencies in a longer term way.
Let's keep the point of view on your end, following up on what Kayode has said. What could be from your data that you have, the cost of help is what I call it, the casualties that humanitarian service providers themselves are exposed to? How many deaths, how many kidnapped, and all of that? Do you have that number? So people can actually acknowledge and, understand what this is really all about. This is not a joke.
Yeah, and I think, look, we don't have hard numbers in terms of, especially our colleagues who work in these places, who live in those places. who are also very, very exposed to the insecurity in the area. Of course, some of our staff have been kidnapped in the past, which has been very, very harrowing, on their way to coming to work, or when they are going about their lives in these places where they live. These things are real. While we've not had in Nigeria, at least for MSF, especially in the Northwest, casualties coming from the insecurity situation, the risks are very real. And I'd say we're lucky that we've not had serious major incidents. But kidnappings have happened. Our staff, MSF staff have been kidnapped, on their way to work, or on their way out of work, or going about their businesses. So,
and that's really
risk.
And that's really concerning. Those providing care being exposed to danger as well. Your statement also appeals to the UN and donor agencies to pay more attention to the alarming situation, and that brings me to my next question, really, about the sentiment of NGOs in Nigeria's northeast now, not northwest, which is really very down to earth about their activities, complaints about them profiting off of the insurgency, and some of the time they're paying for accommodation for 10 years on, and how the insurgency in the northeast is being imported by foreigners. And this has gone on for some time. I wonder if that sentiment is also pervading Nigeria's northwest, such that there are fewer and fewer donor agencies that are willing to come on board and take off some of the stress, some of the burden of the humanitarian response that your organization is helping to manage.
Yeah, it is. It's really, really unfortunate that those accusations fly around, that people who are trying to help are also profiting from the crisis in of itself, especially in the Northeast. But let's focus, yes, and so, again, let's focus on the Northwest a little bit here. One of the concerns, even in raising the profile of this crisis in the Northwest, is that, look, what will happen to the Northeast if donors start coming to the Northwest, right? Is it a case of robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? And here's the thing, and I think we must get this very clear, that we are not here to create a hierarchy of needs or victims of those people in need. People in need anywhere, whether that is driven by conflict or whether it's driven by whatever it is. If you have dying kids, that's a crisis, too. Now, we have very few actors in the Northwest, as you've rightly mentioned. And so we don't have, NGOs, INGOs on top of each other. I think in the Northeast, we have over 200. In the Northwest, maybe we have at most 4 or 5 who are acting there. And Northwest is huge. You're talking about at least maybe 7 states, right? So it's a large area. And so I don't think we hear those kinds of accusations where we are profiting, or the INGOs or these actors, humanitarian actors, are profiting from the issue that is at hand. No. And clearly, for MSF, and I can speak to us, to MSF in particular, because I represent MSF. No, we never ever think, that a crisis is something to piggyback on to profit in any way, shape, or form. No. If a child is dying, the humanity in us drives us to act. Not maybe some political agenda, not maybe some pecuniary interest or anything like that. So, yeah.
One of the scariest things I saw in that statement is that this year, that's 2024, might actually become the worst year yet in terms of humanitarian needs and suffering for people. I mean, when we started the year 2024, those were not the projections we all put in our, vision board. We didn't put, this year might be the worst, because we wanted to have a good year, better than 2023. But with this projection, as we wind down on this, I'd like you to speak to those who can do something. And I'm saying across board, as a matter of urgency, if there's something they were to do as of yesterday to ensure that 2024 is not the worst year that we're projecting it to be. And in this part of the world, we're very religious. People will say, I reject it. But this is the fact, this is the figure, this is the data. What is that thing they must be doing right now?
Yes. Clearly, we've seen an increased violence or events in this region, which continues to fuel the humanitarian crisis that we see, right? And that will exacerbate it, right? Climate change is here, right? What must we do to, at the very least, arrest the trends that we see, put them to a stop? We need more actors in this region to address malnutrition. One organization, cannot do that alone, right? Every hand needs to be on deck to ensure that children who need immediate treatment for malnutrition are treated for malnutrition with the therapeutic ready to eat foods available, and facilities. And also, one of the things that we have that's a big problem is access. Our access to people in need, and those people having that access. We need to have safe corridors which can ensure that the needs of these very, very vulnerable people are addressed. And we can't wait until tomorrow or the day after tomorrow or sit here hoping and just merely praying. Yes, praying is important, but we must act. We must have more funding from international donors coming to the Northwest to address some of these emergency humanitarian needs. We cannot wait. I mean, the clock is ticking. And as I speak now to you, there is a child who is dying unnecessarily. These children ought to not die just like that. I have observed this happen when I visited some of our facilities, and I can tell you, it is one of the most heart-wrenching experiences. If I can feel that way, how do the parents of these children feel when they see maybe they are hopeful? That child they were putting all their hope on, dying just like that.
All right, Doctor.
We must invoke humanity.
Doctor, as we begin to wrap up, it's sad to be left to deal with effects when the causes can be stopped. But that's the position you found yourselves as an organization, and you've been doing this for years. Raising this alarm means that the urgency is as urgent, allow me to say that, as yesterday. If the help doesn't come as you expect, what are the options left for you? Without trying to be pessimistic.
No, I have to be pessimistic, I'm sorry. If the help does not come, kids will continue to die. This is the reality. If we don't intervene, the numbers that we give you, if probably we were not present at that moment, right, that 854 number would have been worse. And these are the ones that we've been able to capture. This is our clinical data. We really have no idea what is happening out there. So we have no option but to act, and to act now.
Dr. Simba Tirima is the country representative in Nigeria, Medicine Sans Frontier, known as Doctors Without Borders. Thank you so much for coming on the program, and we wish you the very best and hope that the people you raise the alarm to, both the government of Nigeria and international organizations, will respond so that these children will stop dying. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Well, it's as clear as it's being said, but we'll shift gears now to something a little different when it comes to artificial intelligence. It's getting even scarier in that particular space. You would like to find out what I'm talking about when we come back after this break. Join us again.
Yeah, things are changing, and they're changing really fast. I know you've heard that a lot, but it's actually true. With artificial intelligence, deep fakes, and the rest, there's a potential for good, a lot of potential, but we've also seen the potential for nefarious activities. Just recently, a company in Hong Kong was scammed $25 million because finance staff jumped on a call with who we thought was the chief financial officer and other members of staff, and an approval was given for $25 million to be moved. And turned out all of the other people in that meeting were not real. They were AI generated of sorts. So you just wonder, what is real and what is not real? You know, the line is getting thinner by the day. Well, we have someone to help us through all of this. Fisayo Fosudo, we team up with him this morning to understand, you know, this new terrain, really. Good morning, Fisayo.
Good morning.
Welcome to the morning brief.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be back again.
Honestly, we were just having this conversation about how things are really changing, and I mean, we sound like a broken record at that point. But let's get right into it. How do I identify deepfakes? I just want to get into it straight away because I'm going to jump on a Zoom call maybe after this show, and I want to be sure that the people I'm seeing are really my people.
Yeah.
But you can give us a background as to, you know, how we got here first.
So I think I would like to go to the basics again. And if you look at AI, artificial intelligence, essentially, it is basically a computer or robot, or the ability of a computer or robot to perform the functions that a human being would typically perform. It is the functions that are typically done by or associated with a human being. And this is a computer doing this thing now. And we're having studies being done day by day on stuff like this. Do you know that today, I was watching this YouTube video by Azara's King, Tristan Harris. There is technology that can scan your brain now and basically read your mind and know your thoughts. And AI is like aiding this thing. There's also technology that can know what you're thinking and display a picture of what you're thinking. Yes, this is today with MRI, like the stuff that scans our brains. They basically notice a pattern. They trained the AI though to understand these patterns. But that I'm taking it too far. Like today we're having stuff with AI. There isn't AI to scam people now. And the funny thing is that happened to me. Like, yes, somebody has used my image.
You, the technology expert.
And likeness. No, not. I was not the victim.
But you were used. Your image was used.
They used my image and likeness to make a call to someone. But thank God the person was also tech savvy, and the person reported to me because they were trying to book me for something. They were trying to pay for, maybe I should talk about their brand or something. They sell phones, and the person reached out. The fake account They tried actually. You know that thing where when they send you an email, it is L instead of I. You know that thing, and it will be all caps, so you cannot know. How can you tell the difference between a small letter L and a capital letter I when it is one stroke? So the person actually tried. They did a good deep fake, but it was not good enough. The lips weren't moving well enough. So the person kind of knew, like in the middle of the call, because they were charging. The reason why the person knew was because they were charging a small amount of money. So it was like, no way, he said, charging this. So he sent it to me, and I was like, nah, this wasn't me, obviously. and it was so, you know how on WhatsApp calls it to be low quality, so it was actually almost there. So it was, yeah, kind of convincing, might convince someone else, but this person was tech savvy, thankfully. So I would always say, like, the first thing I would say is education first. Know about this thing. This technology is not one that you should technically attack per se. I think, you know, when streaming rose, before it was record sales, now it's streaming. People are streaming music now. People were attacking streaming because it was going to affect record sales. There was way more money to be made in record sales compared to streaming. Now it's only platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, and all these guys that control streaming. And this is the same thing that's happening now with AI. Yeah, just yesterday, there was like a big thing that was launched in the developer space. And AI is basically coming for developers' jobs now, I think. But people say no, because our printers are not working well. We cannot really find everything we want with a Google search yet. But this is the worst that this technology will be today. It is getting better. Like, there's Sora coming that can create a very realistic looking video. There's HeyGen that we were talking about before we started. So basically, educate yourself, know what all these things are, so that you are ahead of the game. Know the good side, know the bad side. You know, always watch shows like this, follow thought leaders that are talking about AI, but make sure you are staying ahead of the game so that you know what is real and what is not. You can actually anticipate that.
So maybe you get us through the basics, because when monies move, the way they move, it's no longer a joke. Kayode is still calculating some of his money right now. I don't want to reveal what happened. So maybe walk us through the very basics, because from the video we saw where an entire system was hacked, literally, that's the way I want to put it. And so what are the basics we should look out for? Because it's almost like a retrogression. So if we don't have physical meetings again, if we have to now be afraid that Zoom is no longer Zoom, that means we resort to physical meetings. I'm also expanding that conversation to say, what would not happen to admitting evidence in courts, like videos and audio? So posit it around this.
I think it still comes back to the education aspect, understanding what this technology can do today, because there's stuff it cannot do. It's not that good yet. It is not that good yet. This particular case of this scam is phishing, is basically using personal information against you. This is the thing that happens already with, like, the quote-unquote Yahoo. This is what already happens, but this time around there's just AI to help it. So AI is basically creating a sort of realistic looking image and likeness of this person. And because calls are not, like, the quality is not so great, it will look pixelated on purpose so that it looks like it is poor network or something, even though the quality is not that great yet, but they can use it today. But in this case, it's phishing. And for this, I would always say, like, whenever you receive an email, always check the sender name, always check the links. Don't just click links from your email, because this is how they can compromise a big system. It's just one person that it takes. They can just get on a network and download something to your computer. But whenever you receive an email, check the sender. This has happened to me multiple times. People, like, they will clone Instagram, for instance, and say, oh, we want you to get verified, but I'm already verified. But they'll say, they want you to get verified. If I wasn't verified, I might be tempted to click that link just to get verified. They asked me to enter my password with an already cloned, very well. With AI now, there are AI tools that can perfectly clone a website. So you can just put your password there. It sends it to the person's inbox, and you're logged out of your account. If you lost your account, anybody can enter your account and use it to scam someone else, basically. So always cross-check. Always, like, be checking everything. Be paranoid now if you're not paranoid.
So as an individual, individual level now, it appears that this is personal now. If you want to talk into it, maybe your friends should know you a little bit more, because someone said something. I want you to speak to it. Someone said something that made sense to me. Okay. Someone said, if you are on my account, let's say Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and you see something, somebody maybe hacks my account and drops something that you're wondering, how could Jeff do this? The person said, I don't have a problem with the hacker, I have a problem with the person who believes in me. You get the gist?
Yeah, I get it.
I don't know whether that was a question or a comment or whatever it is.
Okay, go ahead, Fisaya.
I think discernment is not just for we shouldn't like totally blame the victim of this thing. I think discernment is something that everybody should take very seriously now. We should actually try and understand, because we're entering a very, very digital age now. You've heard of the first web, the Web 2.0, which is social media, and now there's like decentralization, and all these things are coming very, very quickly. It's not stuff that we expect. And the thing is, it always happens slowly but surely. Like, it will happen now. We're seeing all these small changes now. It's slow, but by the time it happens as if it is all of a sudden, but the signs were always there. So all of these things now, like I said, this is the worst these technologies will get, but they are getting better. There's like increase in like the way GPUs are processing all this data. They're becoming sharper, they're becoming clearer. So I think it is just to, again, like it still circles back to the first point, is education, staying ahead of the game, understanding what these technologies can do now, and the kinds of technologies that there are now. And I think another thing I'll also say is beware of like all these investment scams, because again, this is something that has happened to like followers of mine. People have, I recently found out that there was a Telegram group with my name that has 2,900 subscribers.
Wow.
And they were giving investment advice to people. They were giving them trading tips, quote unquote. Somebody sends me a message and says, "God punish your papa. Why you scam me?" And I'm like, how? He said, "You took all the money in my account." They were in this group. Basically, what this person was saying was, you send me your account details, I will trade for you, and I will make you profit, and I will put the money back into your account. The person sends their password. In this group chat, I don't know, I reported the group on Telegram. If you find anything like this, always report it. So the person sends them their account details. The person just goes into their account, transfers the money in their account to their own account. Whoa. And that's just like a sad thing. And I tried to explain to the person, like, see, this is not me. This is what happened. And I asked the person to walk me through how they even got there in the first place. They saw an account. Again, it was a clone of my account, but it wasn't verified. And I was always saying it like, please check that it is a verified account you are talking to. Always check that it is like the actual person. Again, try and double check, just cross check and make reference. Just be sure that this is who you are communicating with. And this can happen, at an individual level or a corporate level. If the person had verified, they wouldn't have fallen victim to this. And I don't know how somehow 2,900 people entered a fake group that had my name. Like, it's...
Don't blame us. Okay, we're trying to make money.
No, I think it's a question of they just trust you. This is Fisayo. He understands tech. He understands business.
And besides that, he has a name.
Yeah.
So people just normally...
So it's credit to you that you have a name people respect, but somebody hacked it.
Yeah. Well, for me, first of all, I thought about that video and I thought, if I were a member of this company, that's my salary for a number of months. But really, it looks like there's more danger, with the risks of AI. You talked about streaming earlier on, and what went through my mind was, for those in the creative industry, their intellectual property could also be at risk, of artificial intelligence, of those who could clone it and begin to resell, really. And it looks like the risks outweigh the benefits. I'd like you to speak to that if you disagree. And in addition to that, can legislation deter some of these risks?
Yeah, I think this is a good point, because in terms of this streaming one in particular, there was a time when many platforms came out, and basically you could clone anyone's voice. I mean, now you can actually clone. I paid for a service where you can clone any voice. I was just trying to test it out. I was curious, and you can. Most major artists now, you can clone their voice. You can literally make a song in someone else's name. It would sound like the person, and you can stream and possibly make money. Of course, this is like intellectual property theft, and they are actively fighting against this. So I spoke somewhere, and they were talking about this legislation, and I was fortunate enough to speak to the the Secretary of State for the United States, and he also talked about this specific technology, this thing. And I feel like AI right now is still, again, like I said, is not perfect. And in all these discussions that we had, everybody is careful with the way they are going with, like, should we regulate this thing? Because you don't want to hamper, you don't want to affect the technology too much. This technology is also good because it can help a lot of things. AI can help in the fintech space, which is growing very well in Africa. Basically, we have some of the biggest unicorns, and AI can actually help in this case. AI can help with health. It can help with education. It can help with a lot of these things. You don't want to spoil that, but at the same time, just like I said, people need to know. People need to be aware of all these challenges. They need to be aware of all these problems. They need to be aware of all these situations. They need to actually try and listen more for all these things. We can say that it might not be easy to find out information about it today, because now we don't even know what is real or what is fake. You can see something that will just come out and you cannot really tell. But again, before you share anything, before you forward any message, maybe you want to confirm first. Check, verify the source before you share. This is even without AI. This is like a conversation that's separate from AI, like verifying information before you reshare it. But like I said, in terms of legislation, I think it is a very dicey aspect of it. You don't want to destroy the technology, but at the same time, you don't want to let the technology freely roam and spoil things. But what I also know is most of these platforms, they make you verify something. The last time I tried to do it, they'll say, make sure that this is your voice. You have to tick. And I'm sure that when you try to do this, they probably ask you to tick that this is my voice. I consent that this is my voice. So in case they are going to sue anyone, you consented. And if it is not you, you are the victim. It's not like the platforms or anything. So most of these platforms are putting all these checks in place. Yes.
And it's interesting to see what's playing out in the US. This is with TikTok anyway, because the US believes there's some security risk with China. So there are different dimensions to this, as you said. So it's a very tricky balance. But it just brought something very interesting to mind. I remember as far back as 30 years ago, when we still had analog telephones, you had people tapping phone lines then. You know, it wasn't AI then, but you had people trying to bypass phone lines. So when they clip your line, there's a way you can tap it to make a call. Gen Zs might not understand, no shades here. But the point is, we've always had people trying to circumvent technology, no matter how crude or advanced it is. Yesterday, the EFCC put out a statement that they arrested young Nigerians for suspected internet fraud. And we see this arrest from time to time, dozens of them. Some of them, if they're convicted, may have been responsible for some of these scams that we're talking about. So this is a tricky question. Would you advise that now that we've come to a point where we realize we cannot turn back the hands of time, do you propose a partnership? You know, learning from the
Yahoo boys.
Took it right out of my mouth, such that you can better understand. I mean, someone was arrested for fabricating guns, allegedly recently. And so people were saying, how about you employ that person, use that skill for good to that extent? So is that something you might also want to propose, such that...
No.
Am I thinking like a criminal here?
No. I think I've heard, I don't know how true, but I've heard cases that people learn from. Like, you can actually bring someone that has done something sort of extraordinarily bad, and you can actually learn from the person. Yes, it's possible.
Criminal minds.
Yeah, I feel like it's possible. But I would say, like, for every technology, there will always be bad actors and good actors. Like, there will always be bad actors regardless, because it's new, because of how new it is, because of how novel it is, basically. People will always try to find a way to scam or make money from that thing. It's kind of like an arbitrage opportunity. If you know that you can buy maybe a currency at one price and sell it at a higher price, and you can do that over and over again, it's easy to take that chance and do it. So I feel like it is a new technology. It is something that you can use because most people don't understand it. So do you understand? Because most people do not understand it, you can actually use it against them. But what if a lot of people understand it?
Yeah.
I think that if we're going to look at the positive side, it should be championing education, championing the the stories about this thing, championing the information that surrounds all this technology.
So it should be in our school curriculum.
Maybe.
If it isn't there already, I'll be shocked if it's not there already.
Yeah. I feel like probably like, the mid to higher level education,
right.
They should understand what this technology is capable of and maybe how they can leverage it, how they can actually use it. Because today, like, I think it is still in a very, very, it's not yet perfect, like it's not yet there. It is very interesting now. But I feel like when it gets there, it will not be interesting anymore. Like, it will be concerning. Right now, it's concerning because, yes, there are people that are trying to do, and by the time we find out, we realize, oh, this was AI. How could they not tell that this was AI? But we will get to that point where we cannot tell.
It reminds me of Shaggy's...
But we cannot tell.
Yes, it will get to that point.
It's even getting scarier the way you're saying it. It reminds me of Shaggy's song, It Wasn't Me, literally caught in the act, like, you're not seeing me, you can't see anything. I read something from the Bank of America, which I want you to speak to, in their own advice to how to identify, because we have to educate, as you said, at a personal level. It said, for the audio, listen for longer than usual pauses between words and sentences. A person's voice may also sound flat and lifeless. If it sounds off, it is likely. For the video, it says, watch for long periods without blinking, patchy skin tones and poor lip syncing. Jaw lines can sometimes reveal flaws, such as blurriness or flickering around the edge of the face. Ears may also appear completely different from skin color from the face. Maybe makeup people will be, so I don't know. So
the funny thing is, I watched a documentary recently about how football matches are filmed. And it was shot in another language. But the creator of this documentary shot it and used AI to translate it and into English. And it was the best thing I've ever seen, because there was no English documentary that I could find, that was free at least, about how all these matches, like the total logistics of shooting a football match. That's a very good use of this technology. But what we could notice is around the mouth area, the beards would be pixelated because it's just not perfect there. Like if a movement of the head, it will just, you can tell. Like I said, now it's not perfect, but I feel like when it is perfect, it will be concerning, because the same way I could watch a documentary that showed me every single thing I could know about a football match and made me understand, it's the same way you can get on a Zoom call and it would be sort of lifelike, where the person's mouth is moving very well. So you can tell all these things now. Just take note of the mouth area, like the Hagen we talked about. They've been used for translating many international commentaries, speeches in foreign languages, and they are near perfect. They're actually almost accurate. So you can, that's a good use case. But again, just taking note of that area. In the audio, we will notice that sometimes the voice would just not match. There are some things that will just not match the pitch of the person. So that is also a case now. Adobe has some tools that you can use to reduce noise in a video. When we tried that in the studio, we realized that it doesn't sound like us. It sounds too clean. But then again, some people like it. So it is like, what is the solution? Because it is good. It is actually very good. We cannot even tell, and it feels like it was recorded in the studio. And at this point, it's like, why does this exist? I remember when there was Adobe Vocal. It came out many years ago. They had to shut it down. Basically, when you're editing something, imagine you made a mistake. You recorded a video and you were editing something. In Vocal, you could type in, let's say, I walked my dog, for instance. You wanted to say, I walked my dog, but you want to say, I walked my pup or something. You can actually go there and write it. You just write, change pup to DOG, and it will say it the exact same way you said it. That was very concerning then, but now we have even worse than that. And that was then. They had to shut it down. Now it is free for almost everybody, or you can pay like $10 or $20 to access it. So yes, it is accurate. Like, always check for the mouth movement. Always check, listen to the audio. If it is too clean, sometimes it might even be like fake, or if there are all those like dips at the end, especially at the end of a sentence, it might not end very well. So that can also be something to check, to look out for.
Oh.
Now, you said two scary things. First of all, at the start, you talked about the technology that can read one's mind that has been developed. Yeah. And then you said very soon we may not be able to tell the difference between artificial intelligence and the real. And that speaks to the mindset of some people that have met who would rather not embrace internet technology. You don't find them anywhere on social media, and they say it is safety. It is for reasons of being safe, because particularly for politically exposed persons, maybe not even politically exposed persons. You have talked about your own example, for instance. Your image has been used many times over for negative reasons. So if I choose not to embrace internet technology, not to participate at all, is it an obsolete thinking or is it safety in the long term?
In 30 seconds.
I don't think it's obsolete. I think there's something to be said about privacy as well today. Try and limit the release of information about yourself online publicly, and maybe now even privately. Have you ever had a chat with someone and you saw an ad for the thing you were talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Has it ever happened to you before? I feel like that is even preliminary. Like sometimes, I remember I was in a room with people, I was talking about a visa, and I went online and I saw an ad for a visa. Basically, they're listening to us, our phones, and yes, if you don't know, they're actually listening. And what you're saying is, there's a database, and they know about you. They know. So, publicly, try and limit what you are putting out that can be used against you. I think maybe just limiting what you put out. There's something to be said about privacy. I don't think it is totally archaic or like an obsolete thinking to not put out too much.
Right.
Maybe not totally ignoring it, but limiting what you're putting out.
I'm tempted to touch you to be sure you're real. These days, you're not sure what is real. Oh, he's real.
He's real.
He's real. Fisayo, thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you on the show. Fisayo is a specialist in mobile technology, video producer, and visual storyteller. You can find him on YouTube doing tech stuff and even heartwarming content as well. Fisayo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
for having me.
Morning Brief.
Thank you.
So you won't say we didn't help you, at least. So watch out, and watch out. We'll go on a quick break now. When we return, there's this heartwarming story of girls who have since gone viral dancing on social media. I bet you've seen that video. We'll have the mind behind all of that joining us in a couple of seconds. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Now, this is that part of the program that gets me excited. And for good reason, especially. If you educate a girl child, they say you're educating a nation. But if you educate a girl child, you're giving her the power to making a choice about how to participate in that nation and prepare herself for it. Now, one person who is making tremendous impact in that area is Ms. Seyi Oluyole. She's the executive director of the organization, founder, executive director, Dream Nurture Initiative, and founder, executive director, Dream Catchers Academy. Madam, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
It's so nice to have you. And you're looking good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Let's start with the academy, with the backstory of the academy for the girl children. What inspired it, first of all? And then tell us about those children. How do they come to you?
Okay, so the inspiration is from my personal story. I grew up in in the 90s what would be called a middle-class family. And then, as usual, when Nigeria has its inflation, my family experienced that, and then that just threw things all over the place. And then I'm between 9 and 10, we no longer have a home to live. I'm going from, going to school every day to no longer being able to go to school. And somewhere when I was 12 years old, before then, within those 2 years, we were always moving around. And then when I was 12, we were finally able to rent an apartment, but it was very close to a slum called Ebute Metta. So when I got to Ebute Metta, my worldview changed, even as young as I was, because I saw the community was crazy. I think that's the best way I can explain it. No bathrooms, no toilets. All the houses are made with wood. That's where they do sawdust. So it's not even healthy for someone to live there. But then I found myself there. And I think the first thing, even though I was now living there, but the first thing that just came to my mind is, I would like to change something, because the difference between myself and those children is the fact that the children I met in Ebute at that time is the fact that I had educated parents, and I had parents who knew the importance of education. So every time when we were having that back and forth and being out of school, my mom would insist that, read at home, look for money to take me to school. And then there was this whole community where there was barely any emphasis on education, and even the ones that were going to school from like GS3, they would drop out. Once you're in GS3, they would do like a whole ceremony, and then maybe the kids would go and learn a trade and things like that. And I just wanted to make a difference, because I was like, you know what, if I'm lucky enough to have parents like this, and these children here might not have parents like this, I want to make a change. So it basically started from when I was like 14, 15, and I'm very passionate about the arts. I've always loved dancing, music, and so that as a child, then that was what I had. So that was what I used to, gradually just start something with the kids. And back then, I used to dance with them. Then I used to be called Damptress and a Fabulous Dancers.
Yeah. Say that again.
Damptress and a Fabulous Dancers.
What happens to the group now?
Everybody is grown now, so yeah, I think that's it. Everybody is grown.
I love to see videos of you dancing.
Wow, it's your story is very touching and amazing. And so let's talk about some of your success stories. Just like you've had your own narration. I'm sure when we look at these pictures, every child here is a story for you. I may not be able to pick anyone, not specific, but if you can pick a child that the story will resonate with a lot of people, without necessarily mentioning the name, walk us through a child's journey and how you're so excited what they've become today.
Okay, so I would walk us through one of the girls. I met her at 5. She was 5 years old, and that was in Ikorodu. It wasn't long that I came back from the United States. So every time I would walk down the road, because people knew me in that area. When I was coming back, people were just excited that, oh, she's coming back, she's going to come and teach dance again. So every morning, she would just always call me Auntie Sheyi and wave at me, and kids were going to school. So I stopped them, to ask her some questions, why, going to school. And then I found out that she was from a family of 7, and they didn't have much. So eventually, when they had a chance to choose a child that would go to school, they chose the boy. So someone came to the family and said they wanted to help the family, and then they chose the boy, and the other girls didn't get a chance to go to school. And then she would just be there on the street with her youngest brother and back the brother and always take care of him. And that resonated with me. So, I spoke to her family, and the mom was just so happy and said she wants her children to go to school, not necessarily having future ambition for the child, just when other children are going to school, me too, I want my daughter to go to school. And she will be 15 in December this year, and she has still been with us every day, monitoring her growth. Of course, now she's a teenager, so she's a little, I joke all the time and say she's like a whole new human being now. But I'm very excited about her journey, and I tell her as many times as I can that you are like a beacon, because now all these other younger girls are coming up and they are looking at you, and the crown on her head too is almost as heavy as that as one on my head, because I always tell her that you have to make it to the university. Nobody from her family has ever been to the university. Even nobody from her family has finished SS3 from GS3. Even the boy that was picked dropped out at GS3. So for her, we're very, very hopeful. And I think that that's like the typical story that people from marginalized communities can relate with, where most of the time people just believe that if the boy gets the education first, it will be easier for him to come back to the family and do something for the family.
You know, the way you painted this, it just sounds easy peasy. You know, still, you're superwoman, absolutely. But I know that this can be very tough.
Yes.
I mean, people have just one child, and it's a lot, and it's even their own child, so to speak. And as you see them, they look like they've gone through hell. But you're handling these children. How many are there? 60?
No, 40.
40 rather.
Yes.
40 children, and you pay attention to each of them. We see their videos, they're always happy, joyful. Some of us are like, I envy these children, goodness me. So talk us through some of the challenges you've had to combat and maybe are still combating in this process, because you're doing a lot and it's no mean feat.
So working with children, it's like how sometimes people would do a whole thread on Twitter and say, prove that children are crackheads. And I always watch the video and laugh. So I think the most important thing is patience. Right. Yesterday, someone was at our studio and was just looking at me. I was like, how do you guys end up having videos online? And I'm like, sometimes we take 2 weeks because they are kids. They can have a whole day where they show up and they don't want to do anything. They just want to lazy around, and you try. Sometimes at the end of the day, they'll end up getting their way. And then we have days when they're in a good mood. So I think what we do mostly is just study their mood and consequences for actions. A lot of the time, because of their background, these are kids that experience independence. That's basically what it is, you know. A child that can wake up in the morning, go and do whatever she wants to do. And then now you are trying to fit that child into a structure. It's difficult. Another thing is, a lot of the times, like I said earlier, people hardly have dreams for their girls. So you are spending, sometimes when we want to do rehearsal, we end up spending 2 hours advising them, because you just keep saying, you have to do it, you have to do it. Many of them don't really understand it, but I often believe that eventually I think it's a marathon. I think that's, yeah, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Yes, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So they have their good days. I think highly that's one of the challenges. Then of course funding, as we all know, the constant inflation with food. Rice went from like 25,000 to like 100K, and you cannot tell children that, oh, rice is now, it's not their business. Exactly, it's not their business. So the food is just has to be on their table, and you just have to, you know, find a way to make everything easier. And then sometimes it's from those that have living parents. When the girls start to grow to a certain age. So one time we had an 18-year-old, which was already an adult, but we were really hopeful to achieve something with her. However, the problem was that because she was old enough and she had some skills, every time her father would visit, he would tell her that with this skill, you can come home and make money instead of just sitting here and staying in school. Cite examples like, oh, in Nigeria, you're not even sure you will get a job. And eventually, that particular girl, we actually had to let her go because she would just always talk about how she wants to support her father. And she was 18, there was very little we could do. So I think that those are like the strong major challenges that we experience.
Perhaps we could talk more about that. You know, looking at your videos, the girls are well dressed. You know, even when they're in different clothes, they're well dressed. I'm sure they go to school as well under your watch, and you know, they even have good hairstyles. So, how are you managing to survive besides feeding them, their education, and you know, their clothing and every other thing?
Well, thankfully, we have people that support through. I think social media has helped strongly. Myself and my team were very lucky because I work with people who also have like similar backgrounds. So everybody is always very particular about, oh, you have to look neat, you have to look neat. Even if a child sometimes shows up looking dirty, I can say give her something, like change her clothes, and she will stand there and wash her dirty clothes just so she learns that she has to appear neat. Because of their background, it's very easy for people to see them, and the way they are dressed or the way they look add that to how they treat them. So for me, it's almost like I always tell them that you are prepping for the future. It's not even about now. It's about I won't be there forever. It's about when you're an adult. When you get scholarship to the university, how would you do it? And in terms of fundraising, we do a lot of crowdfunding, and a lot of the times too, when school is about to resume, we always ask people to sponsor a child. We also have people who are aware about what we do and send donations. Like this video that has been played, it was someone that said a school was giving out their gymnastics wear, and then just sent us a bag of all these outfits. So we have donors and sponsors who often, show up and make the work a lot easier.
So let's talk about the dance. We've not talked about this dance. Is it that all of them can dance, or a couple of them you teach them? How does it work? And the ones that may not be able to move like these ones, how do they feel when they see their brothers or their sisters, I should say, moving and they are not moving?
It's not easy. That's the thing, because majority can dance. So the ones we have a particular child who she doesn't have rhythm. That's just it. Like she actually has rhythm. So sometimes she'll go and hide in the video. Then when we shot the video and we're watching, I'll be like, "What's this girl doing here?" And then we'll have to reshoot it because she'll just be at the back moving around. But what we do is we ensure that everybody has a skill. So for some who are not dancing, they also learn tie and dye. They do crocheting. We have some girls who play the instrument, trumpet, recorders. So we just basically try to find a skill that everybody can do. So far, majority of them came in with, like, I would say, potential. So what just happens is we do our scouting, we meet some of the girls, we speak to them, to see where their head is at, to see where their family is at, and we bring them in, and we hope that they love dancing. Sometimes we are fortunate where when we go there, you just meet a child that really, really loves dancing. Sometimes it starts to grow on them. As you know, children, once they see the other kids dancing, they will also want to try. But yeah, I think about 20-something of them dance, while the others are involved in other activities.
I wish we can listen. The producer can help us listen. That particular one with the Nigerian flag, I don't know. What was that about?
That was when we qualified for AFCON finals. And we were hopeful that we would win. I hope the children were not disappointed.
Let's leave it at that. I don't want to relive any hurtful moment. I mean, looking through your social media, you have almost 1 million followers on Instagram. Yes. And that's just remarkable. From this idea, you've gotten attention both in Nigeria and globally as well. We've seen artists like Davido, Tenny, and even corporates coming to support. And it's great to see, really. And I can't even imagine how many people you've inspired to start something like this. But I know you have limitations. You maybe try to touch on them, financing, interactions with the parents sometimes and the rest. But do you ever worry that you can't help as much people? I know people have that feeling. You just wish you could help everybody, but obviously we're limited. We don't have infinite resources. So are you limited to just taking 40 girls? Can you expand? Is that something you're hoping to do? What is the plan, really?
So the plan, actually, in terms of expansion, we are actually currently building a home that would hopefully help us take in about 100 girls. Yes, so I think that's the plan with the expansion. But yes, space has always been a limitation, mostly because currently for our home, it's a rented it's like a rented bungalow. And then we got a quick notice actually last year. So we've been planning on building the home to increase our numbers since 2021. We actually started the GoFundMe in, I think, 2022, April of 2022. And the GoFundMe has just been there. We've been hopeful. But once we received the quick notice last year.
Quick notice?
Yes, in October last year.
Is it because you couldn't afford the rent, or didn't?
No, they want to sell the property. The owner of the property wants to sell the property.
Oh.
So we were just like, okay, you know what, this is perfect time into, just use this situation to say we have this that we are doing, and if anyone wants to support the building of our home to be able to help more girls. So I think that's basically where we are at now. And also because sustainability is very, very important. It's one thing to have the girls in a permanent home. There's also the feeding and everything. So some of the things that we're also trying to do is farming. We actually do have our own farm where we grow mostly vegetables. So, we are hopeful that once we can have the home sorted out, we can have we have a property somewhere in Ikorodu that is like 2-3 plots, that so we can also do both agricultural farming and livestock farming. Currently what we just have is a couple of crops that we are doing so that we don't have to spend money buying vegetables and things like that, and pawpaw. So most of our fruits is always gotten from our farm.
I love pawpaw.
I love farming. I wish I could back that up with action. But we'd like to thank you very much. Amazing work you're doing, and I can see ministers, maybe even presidents amongst those girls, and they'll make you proud in the future. Ms. Seyi Oluyole, founder, executive director, Dream Nurture Initiative, founder, executive director, Dream Catchers Academy. Thank you for helping those girls catching their dreams.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on the program. And we hope to meet those girls someday soon.
Yes. Invite us for your Christmas party.
Right. Or you invite us for yours, right?
Exactly.
So you have the invitation already.
Okay, so we can invite you.
Yeah, okay. You can invite us, absolutely.
Right.
We'll go get party packs, right?
Yes, we'll plan your own special. We'll do a special.
But absolutely, we'll love to be
there.
All right,
we'll love to be there, absolutely.
All right, so today we'll take a cue from Miss Oluyole, who has turned her own story into a big vision that is expanding daily. Do the same for yours. Thank you for watching, and join us again tomorrow when we'll bring you another amazing edition of the program. I am Bukola Koka.
It's always a good time to share this moment with you, and we always cherish it. Thank you so much. I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
And here's to everyone trying to catch their dreams. May you be like Nwabali and catch those dreams. I'm Kyle Okikiolu. Goodbye.